I'm not being sarcastic either. I agree. Or disingenuous. They're all big now in the stretch run here, basically. Not quite. I always say the final 6 weeks, so you get about a week to go yet. I always had this approach. Jared Carrabis, who joins us on the program tonight. I'll get to the particulars with Jared here and his sponsor in just a moment. But I always had this theory, like, you make your deadline acquisitions, and then you give the team about 2 weeks. 2 weeks to sort of figure out how the new pieces are going to work, how it's all going to meld, hopefully, and where it goes from there. And then the final 6 weeks, full throttle. Sorry to bring up touch upon an old wound, but the final 6 weeks, pretty much full throttle. Sprint to the finish line over the final 6 weeks of the season. That's where we begin on the Baseball Hour tonight with Jared Carrabis, who is presented by Blue Moon Belgian White. Be sure to relax and enjoy the ball game with Blue Moon Belgian White. Blue Moon, born in a ballpark, brewed for baseball. Jared Carrabis of Underdog Fantasy. So you and I have not been together for a couple of weeks. You were here last week. I was not. And we have a lot to catch up on, but I want to start with this because every week, and I've told people this in the past, I text Jared every week and say, what's on your mind? What in particular do you want to get to? He replied to me this week with, let me see if I can find it. I texted at 10:24 a.m. Anything specific on your mind tonight? Jared replied within 17 minutes. A little slower than usual. Mm-hmm. Do the Red Sox have to make the postseason for this year to be considered a success, or have they already proven that? So let's start there. Have they already changed your mind? At the beginning of the year, you were as down on this team as anybody. I think we all were. So now here we are on August 7th. The Red Sox are a half game out of the wild card spot. They actually have one fewer loss than the Kansas City Royals, whom they play tonight. But the point is, if they sweep Kansas City, they win the game tonight, they're in possession of the third wild card spot, and they're only a game and a half behind the Minnesota Twins for the second wild card spot. So they're obviously right in the thick of it. And Houston comes in this weekend to Fenway Park. You play them next. They're also in the wild card race. So they're all big now, independent of the opponent, but they're especially big given who you're playing. So let me ask you, Jared. Again, I'll turn back to your question. Is the season already a success?
I don't think it's a black and white answer, Tony.
Okay, very clever of you.
I would say, as of right now, yes. But hypothetically, let's say they have an abysmal September and tank and don't even come close to making the playoffs, and it's like, well, they finished right where we thought they would. That's like worst case scenario. Like, let's just say they have a horrible September and they finish 500, then we'd be like, well, it was exciting, so that was cool that they were at least interesting in the second half, but they finished right where a lot of us at the beginning of the year thought. That's, at this point, I would think, an unlikely scenario. I think they're going to be in it at least until the end, and if that's the case, I don't necessarily think that they have to make the playoffs for this year to be considered a success. And I know that sounds ridiculous because I think we come from the same line of thinking where I don't want to have a low bar, but my bar is low for the 2024 Red Sox. So making the playoffs would be outstanding, but I think just being in it until the end would be a success for me. If you make it till game 162, or let's just say game 155, and you still have a fighting chance to either make the playoffs or flirt with it, yeah, I would say that this season is a success.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit more of a black and white answer than that. And as of today, and I'm going to factor in some things that I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway. August 7th, as of right now, 6:08 p.m., they are where they are. Is the season a success already? My answer is no.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because I have sort of bought in, and my standards for the Red Sox are not based on them surprising us because they didn't finish last. And they're in a position right now to get in. And let me also give you the bigger reason. The bigger reason to me is what kind of momentum are you going to carry into the offseason? If they get into the final month of the season and they collapse and they don't make it, well, then I start to look at it and said, well, when it got serious, you cracked. Not good enough. You got to do more than that. You got to go out and make moves, especially if all these young guys are coming up. To me, the expectation is that next year they are going to be a threat. And I have a much easier time believing that they will be a threat in 2025 if they get into the playoffs and actually put a little bit of a scare into someone. And define that however you want. Losing 4 games, in the division series round. I don't know what the right answer is. I'll know it when I see it. But get in there. Let me put it to you this way: the TV rating for the game last night, still not great.
That's because we took away from the rating.
Oh, you did? Did you have a good night on the? You had a good night on that.
We did. Yep.
What was the number?
Like a 5.
Okay. Well, now I know he's full of crap, Jimmy, because the game did a 3. So I don't think the Altcast did a 5.
Well, you can think whatever you want.
You get streaming numbers. I mean, Nesson Plus and the Nesson app.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you in those terms: do you think the general fan base, not the hardcores, the general Boston sports fan, do you think that person believes?
The answer is they're not paying attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, like it's not whether or not they believe, it's whether or not they care at all. And I don't think that they have seen enough baseball this year to have an opinion.
Okay, so what gets them back to watching baseball?
If they make the playoffs. Run. Yeah.
Playoffs.
Yeah.
The playoffs get them back.
2021, that's what it was. I mean, they were abysmal in 2020. They were good in 2021, but no one cared about that team pretty much until they made the playoffs. Then they made the playoffs, made some noise, and the entire city of Boston was talking about the Red Sox.
Jared, I think there's even a chance that, and I say chance, I think there's a good chance that if they get into the final couple of weeks and they're basically, let's just call it tied for a wild card spot within a game either way, and that the games over the final 2 weeks of the season will determine whether or not they get in the playoffs, I think in some ways that almost becomes the playoffs.
Sure.
And so I think you'll see ratings go up, and then this is hardly some sort of blockbuster prediction. But I think for it to have some sort of impact on the fan base, on the viewing fan base, and people paying attention again, to use your metric, because I think that's a good one. People still really aren't paying attention. It's still summer. People are off doing. I still think there's a COVID sort of effect that because of COVID, people lost a couple of years there, and they're taking their time off and their free time a little more seriously, and they've been spoiled by the winning, and this isn't really a championship team that's captured anyone's imagination. I think all those things have factored into people's attention span and behavior and all that. But if you're in it going into the final couple of weeks, I think people will start paying attention again. Frankly, I think based on the last couple of nights, they should be paying attention now.
Yeah.
These games are pretty good. Pretty entertaining games. The Red Sox are imperfect, which means that they can blow leads. They're scoring enough where they can overcome deficits. So the games aren't over until the end.
Yeah.
There's an entertainment value to the product right now that's pretty good. And I think they're worth watching. So you tell me, do you agree with what they are right now? Do you find them entertaining right now?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Last night, I'm not fabricating my reactions. Like when we were going into the bottom of the ninth, and you've got Kenley Jansen on for a 4-out save, and you've got Bobby Witt Jr., who's arguably the best player in the league next to Aaron Judge, representing the final out. Your heart is racing watching these games if you care. But it's kind of like I use the barbershop test. I listened to the conversations in the barbershop, and all year, no one was talking about the Red Sox. They're starting to ask more questions now. People are getting more curious. Like, hey, are we in a playoff spot? Like, how are the Red Sox doing? Still playing good? Like I wasn't getting that in April, May, even June, and now people are kind of like today. I've lived in my house for probably 2 years now. I've never really met my mailman. He rang my doorbell today. And he's like, I got a question for you. He starts talking to me about the Red Sox. Like, that wasn't happening before. It's been a while since people would just stop and ask you about the Red Sox. So I think we're now at a point of knocking on the door. Like, if you were going to look at it almost as a chart.
Closer.
Yeah, you have your diehards in the middle, and then there's that next layer of, like, the casual fans, and we're starting to crack that second layer there you're piquing the interest of these people that have other things to do. They have kids, families, summer vacation. Well, now the fall's right around the corner. I'm going to at least knock on the door to see what's going on with the Red Sox. We'll see what's up with that. And if I can ask Jared this question, like, hey, fill me in. Like, it's almost like give me the cliff notes so I can catch up to this
where they
point
are
now. Yeah, and then I can jump in from here. I've been getting a lot of that recently. Yes.
So I don't even need people to watch the games, frankly. I just need them to sort of keep an eye on it and know what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And so it's funny you say barbershop. I always say it's the Dunkin' test.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I remember years ago going into Dunkin' Donuts on the way to the office, and I'd be in line to get my coffee. That was pre-app.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you had to actually wait in line to buy a cup of coffee or whatever. And I would be in line, especially when they were on the West Coast. And someone would say, did the Red Sox win last night?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say, yeah. And I remember doing that one time, and there was a woman who had asked me the question who, like, pumped her fist when they won. So I know what you're talking about with the barbershop mentality or the barbershop test.
Yeah.
To me, it was always in the Dunkin' where the same kind of thing happened. And I do think there's a little bit more of that now. If they win tonight, I think they match their season high of 11 games over 500. I don't think they've been 12 games over, if I remember that right. And given the way they were teetering there for a little while, right around the All-Star break, and again, I would say just before the trading deadline, I was a little worried about them. I thought maybe the pitching's really going to go belly up and blow up. It feels like they've kind of grasped control of their fate again.
Sure.
And they got a couple of fresher arms in the bullpen, at least as far as wearing the Red Sox uniform. I think this is actually a pretty important game tonight, too. Even though they're going for a sweep, instinctively you would look at it and say you're playing with house money. But I'm eager to hear what you have to say about that as well. And I should also mention, I want to hear from our callers. 617-779-0985 on the Baseball Hour. We'll continue with Jared Carrabis when we come back.
Stay tuned for more of the Baseball Hour coming up.
Even if Dominic Smith isn't a great player and he's a 4A player, fine.
He's been good.
He has, but this is my point. The other thing is he can play his position functionally. It's not Franchi Cordero or Christian Arroyo in right field or one of those. So it's at least guys who can play their field their position in the big leagues.
Yep.
Like early in the year, we had some doubts in Hamilton at shortstop and things like that. But for the most part, I would say that Bloom really hasn't forced square pegs into round holes.
Breslow.
What did I say, Bloom?
Yes.
Yeah, Bloom used to force the pegs. You know, it was like, well, we need a right-handed bat, so whether he can play first base or shortstop's incidental. No, Breslow has actually gone out and tried to get guys who fit the need.
Correct.
And, and that's a small thing. That's an obvious thing, but Bloom wasn't doing it.
I don't see Pablo as an everyday player.
Thank you.
That was wild. I remember that.
Pablo Reyes.
Yeah.
So again, and I'll say Cora's demeanor has changed. That's a big thing. The team's attitude is better than it was a year ago. It's part of the reason they keep fighting back when they blow leads. It's one of the primary reasons they're winning. I really believe that because they're really not that much more talented than they were a year ago. They have more talent, but Duran's better. Houck has pitched better. Devers, as you said during a break, is playing outstanding. Like all of that. And, I've been impressed with Hamilton, too. I like his game. But they don't have stars. Other than Devers, they don't have stars.
Duran's a star now.
Well, okay, so I'll give you that one. But it's not like the lineup is ripe with them.
No.
And so to me, they're going to have to find ways to hang in there and win one-run games, which is what they've done. Kevin Majori's got your headlines, more of your calls when we come back. And we'll get to Yoshida, too, because he's a good story. That's next. If Jaron Duran's an all-star, they really should cancel the event.
Sports Hub headlines.
The Red Sox will go for the sweep of the Kansas City Royals tonight in Kansas City. Cutter Crawford on the mound for the Sox. First pitch is at 8:10. The team announced a few roster moves today. Outfielder Tyler O'Neill was placed on the IL with a stomach virus and an infection in his left calf, and Manuel Valdez will take his place on the roster. And reliever Chris Martin was activated from the IL. Cam Boozer will go back down. The Patriots, they will play their first preseason game tomorrow night against the Carolina Panthers at Gillette Stadium. Kickoff at 7 o'clock. Latest with the Patriots and Brandon Ayuk. Last night, ESPN's Adam Schefter reported that the New England Patriots were no longer interested in pursuing a trade for the 49ers wide receiver. Latest was from Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He said the Steelers have no verbal agreement in place with the 49ers for Brandon Ayuk and are not in the process of hammering out final details per sources. That was on the heels of 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh reporting today. The Steelers had a verbal agreement in place with the 49ers for Ayuk. All the terms of the deals and contracts were being hammered out at that time. So to sum it all up, nobody has any idea what's going on. Other NFL news, the Cleveland Browns sent out a press release and virtual mock-up of a new proposed stadium to their season ticket holders, in which the organization let it be known that they're leaning toward building a new dome stadium instead of investing in the current one. Sports Hub headlines are brought to you by Valvoline. Enjoy quick and convenient vehicle maintenance this month. Visit NewEnglandOilChange.com for 15% off your drive-through oil change at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, now open in Raynham, Reading, and Braintree. I'm Kevin Majori on Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Your next update in a half hour.
Sports Hub.
1-2. Yoshida on the ground, right side. Past the knob of Pasquantino. Sogard's in. Raphael on his heels. And insurance for the Sox from Yoshida.
This continues to hit with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. That's a big one. Make this a 3-run lead in the 6th. He took the big swing on the first pitch fastball, and after that, Long was like, I'm not giving him another heater. He's trying to take me bridge. Made him swing and miss on the slider, and then goes to a curveball there over the plate. Mazz staying on it, pulling it through the 4-hole for 2 stakes.
Masataka Yoshida. What a turnaround. Holy crap. Talk about probably the hottest guy on the Red Sox. You a Yoshida guy?
I've been accused of not being a Yoshida guy, but those accusations are baseless.
Why are you accused of not being a Yoshida guy?
Because, what was it? The first game of this series, he had a 4-hit game, and I didn't put Yoshida 4 hits in the gold bottles tweet at the end of the game. So everyone was like, why do you hate Yoshida? How does he have 4 hits and you don't put him in the tweet? And the answer to that question, Jimmy Stewart, is because Raw was on the big TV and the Red Sox were on the small TV, so I didn't hear that he had a 4. Like, if you're like watching the game, like you're watching for like the scoring plays and things like that. So how are you supposed to know he has a 4-hit game unless you're like listening to the broadcast, which I was not listening. I was watching. Because it was Monday Night Raw, Tony. You know, it was the Raw after SummerSlam. You obviously were watching.
Oh, no. That's one of the highlights of my summer every year. How could you possibly miss it?
I agree.
So, look, I've been pleasantly surprised, and I'll say that when Yoshida hit the ball out of the ballpark that he hit last night, it was sort of a breaking ball down and in, about halfway up his shin. Yeah, you sort of look at that and go, all right, this guy's locked in. Like, you're starting to hit balls out of the strike zone, breaking in towards you and lifting them out of the ballpark. And doing that sort of thing, let alone I'm going to Abreu now with the opposite field home run that he hit over the weekend. I don't know. They got a little something going. There's a vibe with them that's indisputable. And I just, I think people are going to hear this and say, come on, they're not that good. All I'm telling you is that they're in it. Okay? I've been saying this for weeks, and everybody, you keep saying they're in it. They're in it. They play hard. They find ways to scratch out runs and win games, and they'll blow a 2-0 lead and then still bounce back. The resiliency to me, Jared, is one of the things that has impressed me the most, that even when the game goes against them, they don't pull a Brian Bayo and cave. They fight back. They just keep going. They keep playing. It's one of the most important qualities of a team, and frankly, they have lacked it in the last couple of years. They get to the trading deadline, it went against them, they didn't get what they wanted, and they caved. Now they don't. It's a good sign. And it doesn't mean that they're winning a World Series or even making the playoffs. But they play hard. Nick in Fall River. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, guys. What's going on? Bayo, we have learned, especially because of you, man, that he's definitely a head case. The guy starts to give up a couple of hits, a double here, and then it all seems to just collapse like a tsunami with him. It just all comes crashing down. But what I wanted to ask you guys, I'll try to be as quick as possible, is Tanner Houck. He's had a good year, a really good year, but in the last month and a half or so, his ERA has jumped up pretty much a whole full run from 2.09 to 3.08. I just want to know, should I be concerned with this, as in he's already pitching too many innings and it's going to keep getting worse, or is this just a cold spell that he's going to work out of? Thanks for the call.
Nick, thanks for the call. Jared, what's your read on Houck?
I do think that it has to do with the innings. I mean, you can't be as dominant as you were for a full half a season, make the All-Star team, have a case for starting the All-Star game for the American League, and then be as bad as he's been over his last handful of starts here. I think when you look at what he's done and what jumps out to me, and this is something that Milliken actually put me onto, is the walks.
Bingo.
He's had more walks than strikeouts.
Bingo.
This is a dude that was going out there before, 0 walks, 1 walk, punching out 7, punching out 8, and now it's 4 walks, 3 strikeouts. That's when you start to see a balance like that. That's when I start to get concerned, which maybe they have to build in some sort of break for him. I don't know. Like, can you even afford to do that? Not really. I mean, you didn't go out. You got James Paxton, but it's like, all right. So if Houck were to, take a little 10-day vacation to catch his breath a little bit, like who's giving you those innings?
Can't afford it.
No,
you can't afford it. And I'll tell you, like, to me, Milliken's dead on. It's he's lost his delivery a little. And usually that's a sign of fatigue. And it could be mental too. Like, it's not just physical fatigue, it's also mental fatigue. His delivery is starting to lapse back a little bit into what it used to be. He used to be kind of all over the place a little, and, limbs.
Jerky.
Yeah, and, the arm and the, sometimes under the ball, sometimes sideways. Like, he was much more consistent and compact with his delivery. It has gotten a little loose. I'm no pitching coach, okay, but you can see it. So to me, that's a surefire sign that he's probably just a little worn down. He can't, and I think it happens between the years. Like, when you have injuries during the course of a season, you get breaks, you get mental breaks. Now I'm ready to come back, and then it takes you a little while to get physically in sync. So I think he's lost some of the, I think he's just worn down. I hope that that's what it is. Because I think in the first part of the year, I think he figured it out. That's what it felt like to me. Bill in Texas. Bill, go ahead.
Hey, I just want to call in and say this is one of the funnest years of Red Sox baseball in a long, long time. I've seen every game. These kids are playing great. Halberstam would be writing a book about these kids and how they've overachieved with no front office and all the injuries. But the big take home, and I want them to learn, and I hope the front office learns, is the limit of analytics and Moneyball. If we would have had a couple of pitchers at the beginning of the season or at the trade deadline, we really would be making a run. Don't you think they should learn that lesson?
Okay, so I don't know about the Halberstam thing. I'm not ready to write a book about this team yet. I'm not going that far. But the point about had they been a little bit more aggressive in the pitching market during the offseason, would they be seeing the dividends now?
I hate to bring this up because it's revisionist history, Tony, but what would this team look like if you had never traded Chris Sale for a player that's contributed absolutely nothing to your team this year?
Okay, but did you lament the trade of Chris Sale?
No, that's why I'm saying it's revisionist history. I was like, all right, it wasn't a situation where I didn't believe Chris Sale could be great.
You were just done with it.
It was time to move on. Yeah, and I think that you can look at the butterfly effect of it and say, do you think Chris Sale becomes or has the same season in Boston that he's having with Atlanta this year? It's a fair question to ask. I don't know the answer to it, but it's not just an assumed thing that he would have the exact same season here. But I think what you could look at is something along the lines of, why didn't you just sign someone like Jack Flaherty?
Or how about Imanaga? They couldn't have been more aggressive with Imanaga?
I mean, they tried, but I mean,
well, you got to outbid someone.
Try very hard, yeah. I don't know. But Jack Flaherty is the name for me because that is someone where it's not revisionist history, at least for me. I can go back. And Seth Lugo. Seth Lugo I've been talking about for 2-3 years at this point. If you had signed Seth Lugo and Jack Flaherty, or even just Seth Lugo, or pick one, you're a much better team. And you're not talking about, hey, if we win tonight, then we leapfrog the Royals for the 6th wildcard spot. Maybe you're talking about being comfortably having the top wild card spot. I don't know.
Flaherty was 1 year, $14 million, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what was Lugo?
I don't remember, but it was not.
2 years, $30 million.
Yeah, there you go.
They could have signed them both.
Yeah.
They could have signed them both.
Well, if you sign them both, then now you're talking about Houck not making the rotation and all that.
Okay, or, I mean, you still could have signed both. You'd have figured it out. Maybe your bullpen would be better off. I don't know. The point is
I'm sure Houck would have found a way into the rotation.
Yeah, you can never have enough good pitching. You just can't. So, and they could have afforded 2 more pitchers. At that price, they absolutely could have done it.
People forget that they did sign Lucas Giolito. He just did not pitch an inning for the team this year.
But I will say the general point of, had they put a little bit more into the pitching staff, could they have been better off? And the answer is yes, of course. So that part you should hold them accountable for. I don't disagree with the caller on that. Tom and Hull. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Mazz. How you doing, buddy? Hey, Mazz, you're a huge baseball guy. Okay, so it's May 7th, whatever. Celtics are in the hunt to win a championship. No one's thinking about the Red Sox. And I'm a huge Red Sox fan, but I wasn't really thinking about them. I couldn't name like 4 of the starters at the time. And now it's August 7th, and we are in the hunt. And we have a manager that just got signed for a 3-year contract. And I don't know if you heard his speech I'm sure you did after they won that game last night. This is going to be a special year, Mazz. There's nobody, the Yankees, but the Sox, it's going to be a special year, Mazz. Jump on board, buddy, because I'm telling you right now, this is something that's going to be like, we're spoiled right now in New England.
All right, Tom. Okay, all right. Geez, keep it in your pants already, will you? Holy crap. And I'm not saying I disagree with you, but you start going too far. So here's what I'll tell you. Okay, the comment Cora made to his clubhouse the other night, and you're going 2 nights ago now, that when he won his 500th game. Mm-hmm. Jared, you saw it, I'm sure, because you live on Twitter.
I do.
To me, what it reflected more than anything else, and everybody loves that clubhouse stuff, and I'm sure it was done for Netflix. But what it reflects more than anything else is the difference in Cora's mindset now versus a year ago. Okay, he's into it. He's accepted the realities of the job. He's engaged. His players are behind him. He's behind them. They're one. There's a unity there that has not existed. And I would even argue that clearly there's, from Cora's standpoint, maybe it's contractual purely, or maybe he looks at Breslow and says, thank God Bloom's gone. I don't know, but it's a little bit better than it was. It just was not working with Bloom. And they feel a little more united. So that part is good. You should feel good about that. I don't know if they have the talent to make the kind of run that the caller's talking about, but they have the talent and the attitude to get into the playoffs. I really believe that. They have enough to get in. We'll wrap it up with Jared Carrabis when we come back. Well, to wrap it up here on the Baseball Hour with Jared Carrabis. Any final thoughts, Jared, as we head up to 7 o'clock here? Games at 8. Again, night game tonight in Kansas City. Red Sox off tomorrow. They return home and play the Astros this weekend at Fenway Park, where obviously they have been less successful than they've been on the road. But, Jared, you tell me, any final thoughts as they go into this game tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like that conversation that we had before the break about just getting in, get the 6th seed. I feel like this team, to that rah-rah caller that called in the last segment, I kind of felt a little motivated by it. I mean, you have those Netflix cameras that have been following this team around. You've already clinched this series. It wouldn't shock me at all if this team ended up doing something, and maybe the caller was talking about World Series title when he said special, some sort of memorable moment, some sort of special thing happening with this 2024 team. It just feels like too many things have gone the way that we didn't expect them to. So it would be very odd if that just stopped in August or September.
Well, and look, and a lot of stuff went wrong at the beginning of the year. Casas injury, Story injury, Garrett Whitlock out. Giolito never even saw the field. Not that he is any sort of Cy Young winner, but
they've gotten to where they are right now without their intended first baseman, second baseman, shortstop, and opening day starter.
Really unbelievable
for the entire year.
Yeah, and again, it's been they got some grit. To me, that is the thing to really like about them. I think it's it's an endearing quality in any team. So people aren't really watching and engaged yet. Still summer. Give them another few weeks.
It's coming.
Get to Labor Day weekend and be in it and see what it's like. Yep. I think, these last couple of nights, these games have been meaningful. They're good. It's fun. It's just too bad it took this freaking long to get here. That's my bitch of the day. Jared, thank you as always.
Hey, Tony, it's good to see you.
Pleasure to see you. It's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So always good to see you, Jared. That handsome face of yours.
It's okay.
Kevin Majori's got your headlines. Anything good over there, Kev? What do you got? Nothing good? Brandon Ayuk update?
A lot of non-update on Brandon Ayuk.
Okay, well, don't tell people that or they won't listen.
Well, that'll keep them listening. Good job, Kevin.
Exactly. Yeah, give them
way to hook them in.
Listen to my headline.
Brandon Ayuk update coming up with Majori. Joe Murray's got you for the rest of the night. We'll catch you tomorrow.
From the Town Fair Tire Studio, relatable.
What?